For most of human history, people were sold the same lie. If you had more money, you would be free. If you had a bigger house, people would respect you. If you had more power, you would finally be happy. And millions of people spent their entire lives chasing that idea. But more than 2,000 years ago, a man living on the streets of ancient Greece realized that the entire system was designed to control the human mind. His name was Diogenes, and he may have understood something about money that the modern world still does not understand. Because, according to Diogenes, what makes a person poor is not the lack of money. What makes a person poor is having endless desires. And most people lived without ever realizing it. Because the system never wanted people to be truly free. The system wanted people to constantly want something. More and more without ever stopping. Because the more things a person needs, the easier they become to control. That is why Diogenes was dangerous. Because he was not simply living in poverty. He was rejecting the game itself. In ancient Greece, philosophers were usually respected. They spoke with wealthy people, taught students, and lived as important figures within society. But Diogenes was different. He despised almost everything society valued: status, luxury, fame, power, even the approval of other people. According to some stories, he lived inside a large barrel. His clothes were old, he wandered through the streets, and most people looked at him as if he were insane. But when Diogenes looked at people, he believed the real madness was somewhere else, because everyone was living with invisible chains. They are made of needs. That is why one of the most famous stories about Diogenes is his encounter with Alexander the Great, the man who conquered much of the known world. The man armies followed. The man cities feared. One day, Alexander supposedly approached Diogenes because everyone was talking about this strange philosopher. Alexander stood before him and offered to give him anything he desired. Because this was the most powerful man in the world, people bowed in front of him, but Diogenes simply continued sitting in the sunlight. And then he said, "Stand out of my sunlight." That sentence became one of the shortest yet most powerful challenges in history, because Alexander's power came from people's desires. People wanted more money, more security, more status, and because of those desires, they bowed before powerful men. But Diogenes had no desire that could be purchased, which meant he was not afraid. And a person without fear cannot be controlled. Maybe that was what truly disturbed Alexander, because until that moment, everyone had wanted something from him. But for the first time, he met someone who needed nothing. And that is one of the things powerful systems fear the most. Because systems are built on desire, people must constantly want more. Because the moment people stop wanting, the system begins to slow down. Social media is one of the clearest examples of this today. People no longer simply live their lives, they display them. Their vacations, their cars, their money, their relationships, their success, and everyone is trapped in an invisible competition. Who is richer? Who is more successful? Who is more attractive? Who is more valuable? But there is something strange about this race. No one truly wins, because the system never tells you that you are enough. The moment you buy a new phone, a newer one appears. The moment you make more money, you meet someone richer. The moment you buy a bigger house, you begin wanting an even bigger one. And people spend their entire lives chasing a feeling of satisfaction they will never fully reach. Diogenes believed all of this was an illusion, because to him, true wealth was not having more. It was needing less. Even today, that idea feels uncomfortable because the modern world was built on the exact opposite belief. Today, a person's value is measured by how much they earn, what they wear, where they live, how many followers they have. And over time, people begin attaching their identity to the things they own, which is why when they lose something, they feel like they are losing themselves too. That was the dangerous part about Diogenes, because he exposed people's fears. If someone spends their entire life working for money, and then one day hears someone say that money may not matter as much as they thought, that becomes deeply disturbing. Because suddenly, they begin questioning their entire life. Maybe they wasted years chasing the wrong things. And most people never want to ask themselves that question. That is why society usually dislikes people who step outside the system, because those people reveal the true nature of the game. Diogenes' life asked one simple question: what do you actually need? Because most people confuse needs with desires. The things required to survive are one thing. The things society convinces you to chase are another. But the modern world is built on keeping people feeling incomplete. A person who feels incomplete works harder, consumes more, goes deeper into debt, becomes more afraid, and fearful people are easier to control. Maybe that is why today, even though people own more than ever before, many feel more empty than ever before, because the problem was never really money. The problem was people tying their worth to what they possessed. Diogenes understood that centuries ago. That is why people called him crazy, because a truly free person often looks irrational to society. If someone today rejected the entire status game, most people would probably call them unsuccessful. But according to Diogenes, real failure was being too afraid to live your own life. And maybe that is why his name was never forgotten. Because even thousands of years later, he had already seen one of humanity's greatest weaknesses. People no longer live to survive. People live to appear valuable in the eyes of others. And there is no end to that race, because the system never tells you to stop. It wants you to work more, want more, consume more. Because the moment people become satisfied, the game breaks. But Diogenes stepped outside the game, and maybe that is why he became one of the rare people who were truly free. Because a man who owns nothing has nothing to lose. And sometimes, the most powerful person in the world is not the one who owns the most, but the one who needs the least.